Welcome to Heart Over Gold, the channel where love, kindness, and humanity shine brighter than any fortune. In today's story, after Richard slapped her in front of everyone, Clara stood firm and told him never to touch her again. She took Leo and left, finding safety with an old friend. That night, for the first time in years, Clara felt a spark of hope. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments and keep up with our latest stories. To the world, Drew Sterling was untouchable. A self-made CEO with a powerful empire under his name, his life looked like something out of a magazine. He lived in a grand mansion in the heart of Kensington, had millions in the bank, and was married to Jennifer, the woman everyone admired. Elegant, warm, always smiling, they looked perfect from the outside. But what no one could see behind the tall gates and glowing lights was the truth. Drew controlled everything, including her dot. Jennifer had loved him since their youth. She was there before the suits, before the boardrooms, before the world knew his name. She believed in him, and when his dreams turned into real power, she stood by him, proud and hopeful. But over the years, something shifted. Slowly, like a leak you don't notice until the floor is soaked, the love between them faded. At first it was just the way he corrected her, the tone in his voice that made her second-guess every word she said. Then came the rules, the way he'd decide things for both of them without asking. It all came wrapped in sweet words like protection, and what's best. But it wasn't love, it was control. And finally, came the coldness. He didn't pretend anymore. He didn't even look at her the same way. She was no longer his partner. She was a fixture in his life, like the polished wood of his office desk, expensive, still, and silent. Jennifer knew, deep in her chest, that this wasn't what love was supposed to feel like. Not the kind of love that helps you grow. And the most painful part, they had a son, Leo, just 7 years old, full of curiosity, smart as a whip, and always full of energy. His eyes sparkled with questions. Some he said aloud and some he did and single quotes too. One day, after school, he asked her quietly, "Mom, why doesn't Dad smile when he looks at you anymore?" Jennifer froze. Her hand reached out, ruffling his soft hair. With a trembling smile, "Sometimes grown-ups have hard days," she answered gently. "But I'm always happy when I'm with you," and that was true. Leo was her anchor, the one thing that kept her going. Without him, the silence in that house would have swallowed her whole. On the surface, Drew still played the part of a loving husband. He took her to expensive restaurants, bought her flowers that matched the seasons. Occasionally, he brought toys for Leo from his business trips. They vacationed in lavish resorts and smiled for pictures. But Jennifer felt none of it. Every day, she woke up anxious, walking on eggshells. She didn't call friends anymore, didn't visit her family. Drew had slowly cut off her world, always with excuses that sounded reasonable at the time. That night, the wind on the balcony was cold. Jennifer stood outside after putting Leo to bed, staring at the London skyline. Something inside her shifted, a knowing deep in her body. She was pregnant. A few days earlier, she'd taken a test in secret, and now, as she stood under the stars, she wasn't joyful, she was scared, terrified. How would she tell Drew? What would he say? Would he use this to tighten his grip on her even more? The front door creaked open. Drew was home. No hello, no kiss, just the sound of his coat hitting the hook and the clink of whiskey being poured. Jennifer walked in slowly. "Is Leo asleep?" he asked without looking up. "Yes," she replied softly. She stood near the door watching him. There was a time he would have pulled her close, asked about her day, smiled. "That man was gone, Drew. We need to talk," she said, voice shaking. He raised an eyebrow. "About what?" She took a breath. "Us. How we've changed. I'm pregnant." He stared at her, then put his glass down hard. "Pregnant? You just dropped that on me like it's nothing. I only found out recently. I didn't know how to say it." He scoffed. "How perfect. Right when I'm about to close one of the biggest deals of my career." Her chest tightened. "This isn't just about your work. This is our family, our life. I feel invisible." "Invisible?" he barked. "I give you everything, this house, clothes, vacations, and you say I don't value you. I don't need gifts, Drew," she whispered. "I need respect. I need our son to grow up in a healthy home." His voice went cold. "Don't start your drama. If you want respect, stop making me look bad. Fix your face before people start asking questions." And just like that, he turned and walked away. Jennifer stood frozen. She sat down and placed both hands on her belly. It wasn't just about her anymore. She had Leo and now, another baby. She couldn't keep living in fear, but what she didn't know was that the final crack in their glass castle was about to come. The days that followed only made things worse. Drew barely spoke to her, and when he did, his voice was bitter. Jennifer tried to tell herself it was work stress, that it would pass, but in her heart, she knew better. This man was no longer the one she married. Their home became a silent battlefield. Jennifer moved quietly, always afraid of setting him off. Even Leo began to see it. One afternoon while playing outside, he came up to her. "Mum, why are you always sad?" She bent down to him. "I'm just tired, sweetheart. Dad doesn't love you anymore, does he?" Her heart shattered. "Leo, don't say that. But he yells at you, and he never smiles." Jennifer hugged him tightly. "You don't need to worry about that, my love. I'm here. I'll always protect you." That night, Drew stormed in early, his face like thunder. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" he yelled. "What are you talking about?" Jennifer asked, alarmed. He threw his phone on the table. "Someone heard us at the gala. There are rumors now. People are saying I'm abusive." She stared at him. "You care more about your image than your own family," he snapped. "You just don't get it. I work nonstop for this family. All I feel is distance," she whispered. Leo peeked into the kitchen. "Dad's mad again." Jennifer held him close. "It's not your fault, honey. Never." Then came the weekend. Another gala. Another night of pretending. Jennifer wore a dark dress, painted on a smile, and followed him like a ghost. Halfway through the night, she escaped to the balcony. The cool air gave her a second of peace. Then she heard his voice. "There you are. People are asking for you. I just needed a moment." He grabbed her arm. "You're making me look like a fool." "Let go, Drew," she said, her voice low. And then it happened. The slap. Quick, hard, loud. Everything stopped. Jennifer's face stung, but it was nothing compared to what she saw next. Leo, their son, standing behind the glass doors, eyes wide, watching. In that moment, Jennifer knew this was the end. No more hiding, no more pretending. Something had to change starting now. What would you have done after witnessing such a shocking scene? Share your thoughts on Jennifer's next steps in the comments. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to see what happens next in The CEO's Secret. A slap that broke free. Part 3. Jennifer didn't know how long she stood there. Her cheek stung, and her heart felt like it had been crushed. The low murmur of shocked guests filled the grand ballroom. Some covered their mouths in disbelief. Others simply stared, frozen by what they had just seen. In the middle of the chaos stood Leo, silent and still. Drew for once looked unsettled. His eyes darted across the room as he realized what he had done wasn't hidden. The slap hadn't been private. He had been lost control. And now, everyone knew. Jennifer slowly stepped back, her voice firm but quiet. "Don't you ever touch me again." Drew opened his mouth, but no words came out. The tension was too thick. Just then, James Sullivan, a respected elder in the British business world, stepped forward. He was calm but stern. "Drew, I think it's best if you leave. This is a personal matter," Drew snapped, trying to pull himself together. James shook his head. "It stopped being personal the moment you hit her in front of a crowd." He turned to Jennifer, his expression softening. "Are you all right?" Jennifer nodded, though inside she was falling apart. A few women came over, offering tissues, silent hugs, and warm hands on her back. It was the first time she had ever felt so exposed and, yet so clear-headed. Drew turned and walked away, the cold stares of guests following him. Jennifer didn't go after him. Leo still stood at the edge of the ballroom, pale as snow. Jennifer rushed to him and knelt. "Sweetheart, are you okay?" Leo nodded, but tears shimmered in his eyes. He gently touched her cheek. "Does it hurt?" Jennifer smiled faintly a little. "But it'll be okay. I don't want to go home, Mum," he whispered. Jennifer hugged him tight, her heart aching at his words. "We're not going back. I promise." That night, with James Sullivan's help, Jennifer and Leo checked into a quiet hotel on the edge of London. They had only the clothes they were wearing and the courage that carried them. Her heart pounded with fear but also freedom. While Leo slept clutching his teddy bear, Jennifer sat on the edge of the hotel bed and stared at the phone. She had no one to call. Drew had made sure she was isolated from everyone she once knew. Then she thought of Sarah, an old friend from university. They hadn't spoken in years, but Sarah had always been kind. Jennifer took a shaky breath and dialed. "Jennifer," Sarah answered, confused. "I know it's late, and I'm sorry, but I need help." Jennifer said. Sarah didn't need more. She listened patiently, and when Jennifer finished, there was a pause. "Where are you?" "I'll come right now." Jennifer burst into tears. "Thank you." The next morning, Sarah arrived at the hotel with food, clothes, and a soft smile full of worry. She didn't ask questions. She simply hugged Jennifer, stroked Leo's hair, and said, "You're not alone." Sarah took them to her home near Brighton. It was peaceful, with fresh air and an open garden. It felt like a safe place to breathe. At first, Jennifer barely spoke. She took care of Leo and cried quietly at night. But Sarah gave her space-made tea, sat beside her in silence, and waited. Almost a week passed before Jennifer found the strength to speak. She told Sarah everything, the years of control, the cold words, the loneliness, and the final slap. That night, Jennifer whispered, "He didn't look sorry, just scared that others saw." Sarah didn't speak. She simply rested her hand on Jennifer's shoulder. "You can't go back, not even for a second," she said. "I won't," Jennifer replied, "but I don't know how to begin again. He owns everything, my bank accounts, the house. I have nothing, and I'm pregnant." Sarah's eyes widened. "How far along?" "Just a few weeks. I only found out recently." Sarah nodded. "Then now's the time. You need to protect that baby. And Leo, and yourself." No more silence. Jennifer nodded slowly. She still trembled, but it wasn't from fear anymore. It was something stronger, something rising. That very day, Sarah helped Jennifer contact a lawyer. Her name was Eleanor Hayes, and from the first call, Jennifer felt safe. Her voice was calm, her words clear. "We'll start by filing a restraining order," Eleanor explained. "But be ready, he'll fight back." Jennifer's jaw tightened. "Let him try, he won't hurt us again." And with that, Jennifer's new fight began. One filled with challenges, but also hope for herself, for Leo, and for the child she carried inside. Leo hugged her tighter even from Dad. She didn't know what to answer immediately. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and said softly from everything, "And Averian, I promise you." The next day, Eleanor organized an urgent meeting with a criminal lawyer and a child therapist. They knew Drew wouldn't stop, they had to protect Leo on all fronts. "He's going to try to ask for custody." Eleanor said, "He's going to use everything he can against you, from your financial situation to your emotional stability. He's going to paint you as an unstable mother, and he'll do it with a smile on his face." "What do I do?" Jennifer asked, her soul in turmoil. "Prove who he really is. You're not alone. We're going to fight with everything we've got." Eleanor gave her a list. She had to organize her documents, open a bank account in her name, start working, even if it was something simple, and gather any witnesses who could speak about Drew's true behavior. They also had to present evidence of the isolation, the control, how he had left her without resources that night when Leo was already asleep. Jennifer and Sarah sat in the living room with hot tea, the silence off. The house was comfortable but heavy. "I never imagined being in this," Jennifer said suddenly. "My whole life I took care of myself. I was a good wife, a good mother, and this is how I ended up." "No, Jennifer," Sarah told her. "This is how you're starting. What you lived through wasn't your fault, and what's coming is what you are going to build." Jennifer smiled at her, her eyes misty. It was true. For the first time in a long time, she had the opportunity to start from scratch and wasn't going to waste it. A few days later, Eleanor called her, her voice firm. "We have a date, preliminary hearing. In 2 weeks. I need you to be ready. They're going to scrutinize you, but they're also going to listen." Jennifer closed her eyes. 2 weeks, 14 days. Top prepared to face him, hidden, not as his wife, not as his victim, but as the woman Woe wouldn't let herself be stepped on anymore. And as she mentally prepared herself with the support of Sarah, of Eleanor, of little Leo, who smiled at her every time she made him breakfast, she knew she couldn't lose. Not this time. She owed it to Leo, she owed it to the baby, and above all, she owed it to herself. The battle for freedom begins. Do you think Jennifer will fare in court against Drew's power? Share your predictions in the comments, and remember to like and subscribe for the final chapters. The CEO's Secret. A slap that broke free. Part 5. Time flew, and yet dragged on. Day was a mix of anxiety and hope. Jennifer woke up early, made breakfast for Leo, reviewed documents, talked to Eleanor on the phone, and tried not to think too much about what was coming. But there was always a moment, however small, when fear crept in uninvited. She knew Drew wouldn't stay still. She confirmed it one morning when she received a message from a hidden number. "You don't know who you're messing with. You're going to regret this." Jennifer took a screenshot and sent it to Eleanor. She didn't reply to the message, didn't react. She wasn't going to play that game anymore, but she couldn't stop her hands from trembling. Eleanor replied instantly, "Save everything, every threat, every attempt at contact. We're going to use it, and you're not alone." But still the fear was real. That summer night, Jennifer woke up sweating. She had dreamed that Drew appeared at the door screaming her name, taking Leo away from her. She got up and went to the child's room. She found him asleep, hugging his teddy bear. She sat by his side and stroked him until her heart rate slowed down. "You're not going to touch him," She thought never again. The days leading up to the hearing were exhausting. Eleanor prepared her for everything: what to say, how to say it, how to stay calm if Drew tried to provoke her. They also spoke with the child therapist who evaluated Leo and prepared a report confirming that the child was showing signs of stress, fear, and excess. To his mother, it was another key piece. "You're not harming him by reporting this," the therapist told Jennifer. "You would harm him if you stayed silent. This process will be difficult, but it's the only way to break the cycle." Sarah Assaways was present. Every time Jennifer broke down, she reminded her how far she had come, that she was no longer the woman who silently endured. And the day arrived. The hearing was at the family court in London. The building wasn't imposing, but the atmosphere was tense. Jennifer arrived with Eleanor. Drew was already there, surrounded by his lawyers, dressed in his best suit and with the usual arrogant expression, as if he already knew he would win when he saw her. He smiled arrogantly, but she didn't return his gaze. She kept walking with her head held high. She was nervous, yes, but she also felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: dignity. The hearing was not public. Only Theinvold parties were present. The judge, a man with a serious but fair face, the file and began to review the facts. Eleanor was the first to speak. She presented the case clearly, showing the evidence, the messages, the photos, the therapist's report, Jennifer's testimony. Drew shifted in his seat, growing more tense with each piece of evidence. When it was his turn, his lawyer tried to change the narrative. He said that Jennifer was unbalanced, that she wanted to alienate the child out of revenge, that she herself had distanced herself from her friends and family. Jennifer took a deep breath. She expected those lies. She had heard them many times. And then the judge gave her the floor. She stood up. Her voice trembled at first, but as she spoke, she found strength. "I didn't come here for revenge. I came to protect my son and my baby. I came because I want my children to grow up knowing what respect is, not fear, because I won't be silent anymore." The judge nodded, took notes, and called for a recess. The atmosphere became dense in the hallway while they waited to return to the courtroom. Drew approached Eleanor, tried to intervene, but he spoke directly. "This isn't over, Jennifer. You'll see what it's like to fight me." Jennifer looked at him for the first time in weeks, and she didn't tremble. "I don't care how long it takes. I already won. Because I'm not afraid of you anymore." Drew clenched his jaw, but said nothing more. He turned and left Upon. Returning, the judge did not issue a final sentence, but he did issue precautionary measures. Drew could not approach Jennifer or Leo. Visits would be supervised if the judge authorized them later. Jennifer left protected. It wasn't theft or victory, but it was a victory. And as she left the courthouse with Eleanor and Sarah, she felt something new: relief. "You did it," Sarah said, hugging her. "You up to him, and it wasn't easy," Jennifer replied, "but it was necessary." That night, upon arriving home, Leo ran into her arms. Jennifer hugged him and lifted him off the ground, laughing with a mix of exhaustion and joy. "Did you win, Mum?" She looked into his eyes. "We won, my love, all three of us. And for the first time in a long time." She said it with certainty. Another inside joke for those who only check their comments right. French fries. Those who made it this far will get the joke. Let's continue with the story. The CEO's secret: a slap that broke free. Part 6. Epilogue. The days following the hearing felt strange. Jennifer had won a small reprieve, but not the complete battle. She slept better, but not entirely. She ate more calmly, but always with a knot in her stomach. The restraining order was in effect, and Drew, at least outwardly, had disappeared, but Jennifer knew he wouldn't stay quiet. She confirmed it one afternoon. Sarah came home with a serious expression, carrying the newspaper under her arm. "They published an interview with him," she said, placing the paper on the table. "He's saying you abandoned him without reason, that you're depriving him of seeing his son, that it's all a misunderstanding." Jennifer took it in her hands. There was Drew's face on the front page, serious gaze, with a headline that read, "A father destroyed by a lie." Her chest burned, not because of the lies, but because of how well Heckle managed his image. It had always been like that. He knew what to say, how to say it. He knew what mask to wear depending on the audience, and now he was using the media to paint himself as the victim. Eleanor called minutes later. "I saw the interview. Don't respond, don't make statements. This is part of his strategy. He wants to pressure you publicly because he can no longer touch you legally." "What if people believe him?" asked, feeling the lump in her throat. "It doesn't matter. What matters is what the judge sees, and so far you're doing perfectly. Hold on a little longer." Jennifer hung up and looked out the window outside. Leo played in the garden, happy, carefree. His laughter filled the air. That's what mattered. That's what she was defending. That same night, as she read him a bedtime story, Leo asked an unexpected question: "Will Dad ever come back?" Jennifer swallowed. "Maybe at some point you can see him, but with someone else present, and only if he learns to behave, so he'll never live with us again. Jennifer looked into his eyes. No, my love, he'll never live with us again, but that's not a bad thing. We're going to be okay. Leo nodded and snuggled up to her. Jennifer him tightly. She felt her heart break but also fill up. They wear a toga, and that was enough for now. The lawyer Eleanor warned her that Drew would try to counterattack through legal channels, and she was not mistaken. A week later, a notification arrived. Drew was requesting shared custody. He argued that he had a right to be in his son's life, that Jennifer was alienating him without reason, and that his company was being affected by all this scandal. Jennifer felt her blood pressure drop. It can't be, she whispered after Althus. Eleanor took a deep breath as she read the documents. He can try, but he won't win easily. We're going to respond. We're going to show everything we have. This is his last attempt to regain control. Jennifer felt like she was back at war again, preparing documents again, coordinating testimonies again, summoning witnesses, collecting evidence. During those weeks, Sarah became an irreplaceable pillar. She took Leo to therapy, helped him with homework, cooked when Jennifer couldn't even boil water every night before bed. Jennifer sat with her notebook and wrote down what she felt. It was a kind of diary, something that helped her release everything she didn't say out loud. She wrote things like, I can't let him win. I can't let my son believe this is normal. I have to be strong even if I sometimes want to give up. And so time passed until the second hearing arrived. This time it was for custody. Everything was at stake. Drew arrived at the courthouse with the same arrogance as always. He greeted his lawyers, smiled at the press waiting outside. He looked like an actor on his way to a premiere. Jennifer, on the other hand, entered without makeup, with a clean face, with a folder of papers under her arm and Eleanor's hand squeezing hers in the courtroom. The atmosphere was cold. Judge reviewed both files. Eleanor presented every piece of evidence in detail. The threats, the history of violence, the psychological evaluations she showed. Leo's therapist's report, and presented a letter of support signed by the child's pediatrician confirming Jippy's childhood anxiety since he witnessed the abuse. Drew's lawyer did what everyone expected. He attacked. He said that Jennifer had manipulated their child, that she was using him as a weapon, that she was emotionally unstable. Thatch had no income, that she couldn't guarantee Leo a quality life. Your Honor, Eleanor said in a firm voice, having money doesn't make anyone a good parent, and not having it doesn't make anyone a bad mother. What matters is the environment, emotional stability, love, and in this courtroom it's clear who has all of that to offer. Leo. Jennifer took a deep breath. She felt her heart was going to explode, but she was there standing facing it. The judge didn't issue his ruling that same day. He said he would announce it in 3 days. They were the longest 3 days of her life. She spent the hours on autopilot. She played with Leo, but her mind was elsewhere. She couldn't sleep or eat. Welsh just waited, and the moment arrived. Eleanor's call came early in the morning. Answered trembling. You won, the lawyer said on the other end. For custody. No visits for now, and a mandatory review in 6 months. Until then her can't approach. Jennifer didn't reply. She just started talkery. A cry held back for weeks, for months, for years. Sarah hugged her tightly. And Leo, seeing her emotional, ran to hug her. To what's wrong, Mum? She looked at him with tears in her eyes and smiled. We're going to be okay, truly okay now. That night Jennifer wrote a single phrase in her journal. I'm not afraid, and she wrote it with conviction. Days passed, and something inside Jennifer began to change. No longer woke up with a knot in her chest. She no longer checked her phone every 5 minutes expecting threat. She no longer lived waiting for the next attack. It wasn't that the fear had completely disappeared, but it no longer demanded, it no longer dominated. For the first time in a long time Jennifer could breathe. The news of the ruling in her favor leaked to the press, and although Drew tried to counter it with more false statements, this time it didn't have the same effect. The scandal no longer favored him. Several people who had once feared him began to speak. A secretary, a former partner, even a woman who had been engaged to him before Hemet. Jennifer, the truth began to come out, and when the truth shows its face, no power or money can stop it. Drew was not arrested, but his image was stained forever. He lost investors' contracts, and a part of the respect he soaked. And although that didn't erase what Jennifer had suffered, it was a beginning of justice. Meanwhile, she began to feel alive again with the help of Sarah and Eleanor. She started looking for a job. It wasn't easy, of course. She had spent years out of the workforce, but she had a degree in interior design and good taste. So she decided to try it on her own. She designed a simple website, did some free designs for friends, and little by little, the name Jennifer Sterling Spaces with Soul began to be heard in the small local circle. Someone asked her for help with an apartment, then another with an office, and without realizing it, already had 2 projects a month. She wasn't making a fortune, but it was hers. It was honest, and most importantly, It was enough. One afternoon, after dropping Leo off at a music class, she sat in a cafe facing the sea. She had a notebook in her hands, the same one where she had written so many times, with fear, with anger, with desperation. That day she wrote only 3 words: I'm starting over. She looked towards thick as the wind, disheveling her hair, and for the first time she didn't think about what she had lost. She thought about what she had gained: freedom. Leo was also a different child. He slept better, he ate better, he no longer got scared when someone raised their voice, and every time Jennifer told him, I love you, he replied without hesitation, Mo to mum, always. The baby grew strong in her womb. In the ultrasounds everything was perfect. It was a girl, and she already had a name. Lily. Leo had suggested it because he said Lily sounded clean, pretty, like the sky when there are no clouds. Jennifer didn't have much, but she had the essentials: a modestum, a happy son, a baby on the way, and a friend like Sarah, who had been her rock in the darkest moments. Sometimes they would sit together drinking coffee, laughing, remembering everything they had been through. Do you realize you got out of it? Sarah told her one night that you did it yourself with your own steps. Jennifer nodded with a faint smile. And if they wrote it as a story, no one would believe it, but it's real and you're the proof. And she was right. The day Lily was born, Jennifer cried like never before, not from pain but from emotion. She held a new life in her arms, one that would never know fear or shouting or the heavy silence of a broken home. Lily arrived calmly, with the sweetness of someone who knows she is expected. And when Leo met her for the first time, he approached, kissed her on the forehead and said, Hi little sister, don't worry, I'm going to take care of you. Jennifer looked at them, and she knew she had succeeded. The storm had been long, strong, ruthless, but not infinite, and now another stage was beginning, one where love didn't hurt, where hugs didn't hide scars, where happiness wasn't a mask, but a real start. A life with scars, yes, but also with wings. And in that new beginning, as Lily slept, and the sun slowly set among the clouds of England, Jennifer wrote one last sentence in her notebook: I will never again be less than I deserve.